Time for our tech slot this week, and unless you've been living under a rock, you cannot but have heard about the ransomware attack on the HSE and the consternation that has caused and will continue to do over some considerable length of time. Jordan Casey is our tech man, and he joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Jordan.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Hey Jordan, how are you doing? Yeah, like Ollie said, it's been massive headline news since last Friday. A terrible thing to have happened. So stressful for staff in the hospital, you know, who already have huge workloads. I read in the Irish Examiner yesterday, they likened it to 1970s systems that they're back using. People literally running around with scheduling sheets because they can't access computers. How can something like this happen?
It's absolutely crazy. And as you said, the entire systems have been shut down in sort of an emergency capacity as to not prevent anything worse happening. What happened over the weekend was what Ollie said was a ransomware attack, which is a type of virus software that can be installed via email or via a computer virus that basically encrypts files on a computer system and makes them impossible for the owner of the system to access. So it's sort of a reverse encryption. The hackers or whoever have conducted the attack would then look for a ransom or a monetary payment to get the information back. So the HSE have done the right thing in shutting down their systems so as to not force any other information to be encrypted. But as we've seen, the fallout has been crazy, and it's been a real eye-opening situation that's happening. Yeah.
So how do you combat something like that? How do you begin to even take that on? Apparently, they're based in Russia.
Over the last couple of years, this has become a lot more frequently. It's usually sort of underground gangs or even sometimes governments that have a team of sort of cyber security hackers. That it usually looks to be large corporates or large corporate businesses that have got in via an email or via a referral link or even just a little scam text. Like, it's something as simple as that can then go in and infect an entire infrastructure, as we've seen. So I suppose, like, in talking about how this may be prevented, a lot of security companies are working around the clock providing these new antiviral softwares, but what we've seen over the weekend was actually a new form of what is called a Conti ransomware attack. It had never been seen by the security team before. It's sort of like what we're sort of combating in real life, and that a virus that was able to infect people that were unbeknownst to it. It's a big eye-opener at the minute.
And the Taoiseach, just to kind of add about the ransom, has said in no uncertain terms the government won't be paying any ransom, which is probably the right call as well. Because, I mean, if you start paying ransoms, you know, other gangs could probably think, well, there's money in this. So I suppose the hope is that it will be fixed without having to do anything like that.
Absolutely. I think it sets a good precedent in the way that it's being handled right now, as this is one of the biggest cybersecurity attacks on a government in the last couple of decades. And as we've seen the fallout in terms of X-rays and MRIs and CTs being cancelled. But as I said, I think the HSE are doing the correct thing in that once they became aware of the attack, they actually shut down their systems. So the fallout is actually because the systems are down, to prevent any sort of further damage or even potentially very sensitive data that could be leaked as a result of this. If the ransom is not paid, a lot of these gangs would then, as a sort of second approach, would actually start to leak this data to force the business, or in this case the HSE, to give up the ransom. But as we've seen the shutdown, we've seen this HSE have handled it quite well in terms of having backup systems installed. And yeah, I think it's brought a lot of light to how businesses can support themselves in potential with this. We've seen lots of new scams coming up over the last few months, whether they be on emails or simple phishing emails. I think a good rule of thumb in that is just to be careful. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And also even just text messages, phone numbers, but also making sure that you have a backup. I think a lot of people, in terms of their computer storage or in terms of their memory, would not really look to pan an eye on having a backup or having a backup system. And really, you only realise you need a backup when you actually need a backup or something happens. So I would definitely recommend any business, organisation or individual to make sure they have a backup in place. I think this is probably the most important, but also making sure you have antiviral software as well. And particularly depending on what type of device you have, I think a lot of people tend to look at PCs and Windows computers as the only sort of device that could get a virus. I think people think that sort of Apple devices or Android devices might be sometimes immune to these sort of attacks. Any device can get a virus, whether it be a Mac, an iPhone, an Android phone. Whilst they could only get in through small implications, they can actually get into large systems as well. So yeah, I think people should be careful. I think what we've seen over the weekend has has shed a light on an important issue.
A timely warning, Jordan, and that's where we've got to leave it for this morning. But thank you so much for taking a look at that for us. That's Jordan Casey from SCNE and Hub Web Design Waterford. And don't forget, for any app or website development queries, you can contact jordancaseyradio@gmail.com.
Thanks, Jordan. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.